Welcome back to 90s Punk Rock Covers. My name is Sam. Today I will share with you how I typically dial in my dual rectifier. Now a few weeks ago I made a similar video of my approach on how I typically EQ an amp. Now in that video I feature my Friedman Smallbox 50, which is more of a Marshall kind of amp. Now the rectifier is basically a much different beast, and although it's not a hard amp to dial in, it's got a pretty straightforward EQ for the most part. I feel like things can go wrong quickly if not dialed in properly. Now this particular rectifier was made in late 1992, in October to be exact, so close to my birthday, and it is one of the earlier revision Fs ever made. And it actually falls in the first 900 serial numbers, so a very early example. Now if you want to learn more about this particular amp, I actually made a gear spotlight video where I go in depth about the different revisions and other information that might be of interest to you. So please go and check that out. I will link it in this video. But to give you guys a quick summary, the Revision F amps are considered to be one of the best sounding two-channel early rectifiers ever made. To my ears and to a lot of people who have owned or played this particular revision, they are much tighter and much more organic sounding than the later revisions. Now I've owned a lot of rectifiers over the years, including an early 1990s Rev G, late 90s triple rectifier, a single rectifier, and even one of the newer three-channel versions. And even though all of those amps sounded great, I feel like they all lack the feel that you get with this particular amp. Now I think the key to dial them in properly, or at least how I think they sound best for my style of playing, is to tame the lower frequencies and juice up the mids in order to bring out more of that higher frequency of the amp and not mud up your sound. Also, the presence control plays a crucial part in achieving this. Now, a quick tip, and probably contrary to popular belief, I actually set mine up using the spongy setting in the back of the amplifier, which brings down the voltage of the power amp section a little bit since these amps run quite hot. Now I feel that the amp runs a little bit more stable that way, and I also set it to use the rectifier tubes as opposed to the silicon diode settings. But now if your goal is to achieve extreme tightness for more of an aggressive sound, then I would probably recommend the solid state and the bowl settings. But to me, the amp sounds quite tight as it is, so these settings give me that organic kind of overdrive that I typically like. So for today's example, I will be playing through this lovely gold top. This is a Gibson 1957 Reissue, and it sounds really great through this amp in my opinion. And as I did on my last video, I am miking up my Bogner 412 cabinet with a Shure SM57, just a little bit off center of the cone, and a C214 as a room mic to record this. The master volume is set to bedroom level, so I know this is not optimal to record, but it is the best that I can do since I live in an apartment. And the reason why I prefer recording this way as opposed to going into an impulse response like I normally do, I feel like I won't get that room effect that I'm trying to achieve in this sort of videos, or at least I hope I am. All right, let's start with the fun part of the video. So we're gonna start dialing in the amp. Right now I have everything set at noon, basically 5 on the dial, to give you guys a taste of how the amp sounds with a flat EQ. Now the volume, like I mentioned earlier, it's pretty low. It's a bedroom level. It's around 1.5-ish, something like that. So trying to keep it controllable here. So let's just, I'll play some power chords and stuff like that to give you guys a feel for what the amp sounds with a flat EQ. So. So it's not bad. Obviously, it's a flat EQ, so we can do better than that. Normally, I like to start with the bass, rolling it back like I normally do with every amp. So my approach is almost always the same with any amp that I try. This particular amp, obviously, it's got more of a low-end frequency, so you just gotta play around with the bass until you find the sweet spot. So I will bring it back down to probably about 3.5 on the dial. So that should bring a little bit of that low end and keep things a little bit tighter. So let's see, I'll play the same thing again and see how it sounds. So automatically I feel that the amp got a little bit tighter than when I first started. So that's usually normally where I like to keep the bass on this amp. Sometimes I might even roll it back off a little bit more. With the spongy and the two rectifier settings, actually I like to keep the bass a little bit lower than normal because the amp sounds a little bit more sag. It has a little bit more of a sag. So if you crank up the bass too much on those settings in particular, it's just gonna be a little bit too floppy for my taste. So I'm gonna leave it there, and I'm just gonna start playing around with the high end. So I'm gonna bring the treble probably about 6 on the dial right now, and see what it sounds like. I'll play the same thing again. Okay, so it's starting to sound better to me. Hopefully it translates well into the recording. So like I said earlier, the presence and the mids are crucial in this amp. You don't want to take away too much of the mids because it's just going to sound bad, in my opinion. I know a lot of people like to scoop the mids a little bit, but in this amp in particular, due to the voicing, I think it sounds much better when you crank it. And that happens with a lot of amps, I think. You know, a lot of people don't like to play around with the mids too much. Either they scoop them too much, and it's not a good sound. You want to cut through the mix. So I'm gonna bump it up to 7. I'll leave the bass and the treble right where they are. Presence is right at noon, and the gain is at noon. I've been playing with the gain at noon the whole time. So let's play the same silly riff again. Okay, sounds good to me. Now let's start messing around with the presence. So right now it's pretty crunchy. And the thing with the red channel is that it's a very aggressive channel. Obviously, it's the rectifier sound that everybody likes or knows. So if you play around with the presence and actually bring it down a little bit. So let's bring it down to 4. And I'll leave everything in the same. I think it makes a really drastic difference. It's one of those knobs in this particular amp that just completely changes the sound of the amp overall. So again, I'll play the same thing now, and then I'll change it up later. Okay, sounds good to me. Let's keep going. So you know, you can't be too drastic with your EQ. You want to try to keep everything kind of, you know, balanced. Right now, I'm liking what I hear. I'm gonna bump the gain to about 6. That to me is the sweet spot in this amp. This is basically kind of like a standard rock or punk tone to me. So I'll leave it, I'll put the gain at 6. I'm gonna bump the mids a little bit more. And I'll keep the bass where it's at. Actually, I'll bring the presence down a little bit more. So it's probably around 3 o'clock. I mean, not 3 o'clock, 3 on the dial, basically right where the bass is sitting at right now. And let's see. So I wish I could crank it more actually, because I'm starting to feel it. You know, it sounds really nice in the room. Let's bump up the gain a little bit more, make it sound more aggressive. I'll bring back the mids actually. I'm gonna bring it back and see if you feel that it sounds better with the mids around. Let's go to 4. So basically 11 o'clock. I'll leave the presence, bring it a little bit higher, so 11 o'clock on the presence, and it's really hard to see the knobs in here. They don't have like a little dot. It's very hard to get them to see here. So I'll leave the mids right there. The treble, I'm gonna raise it up a little bit more. Probably will sound a little bit more aggressive, more biting. Let's see. I hope you all enjoyed today's video and find it helpful in dialing in your rectifiers. Like I always say, tone is subjective, and no matter if you or me are actually playing through the same exact rig, chances are our tones will be different. So there's too many variables into achieving your particular sound, but at least this video, hopefully it serves as a way of giving you a different perspective on how to dial it in, and who knows, maybe it will work out for you as well. Thank you all for watching. As always, please share this video, like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell to stay notified on future videos. Look me up on Instagram, and I will see you all in the next video. Cheers.